So I was in third grade. Her name was Sherry Daniels. And you guys know Sherry? My friend Andy and I had this competition. We both liked her, and we were just trying to up our game. And I knew in order to really mark my territory, I needed to kiss her. And so I was working out a plan how I was going to do this. Was it going to be at recess? How do I make this happen? And we were at gym class, and I mean, nothing's more romantic than gym. And I'm in gym class, and it was back in the day when they used to have the rope that hung from the beam in the gym, 20 feet high. How many of you guys remember that? Yeah, we can't even climb on like a 4-foot ladder anymore without helmets and body armor. But anyways, back in the day, we would climb up this thing, and it was that time where you could either climb the rope or you could swing on the rope. And if you chose to swing on the rope, then you would run across the bench, which is totally illegal now, but you could run on this bench and then jump on the rope and then just swing around. It was awesome. And what would happen is when the person would run and jump, everyone would watch them, because that was when the accident would happen. They would slip and then biff it, and go down. You're like, yeah, oh, are you okay? But that was going on. And right at that moment when Brandon went, I knew everyone would be watching Brandon. That would be a perfect time to kiss Sherry. And so Brandon went, everybody's watching Brandon. I leaned back, kissed Sherry right on the lips. Boom. Marked my territory, and then I walked by and watched Brandon. Rope came to me. I ran. I think I jumped higher than I ever had. I never talked to Sherry about that moment later. She left the school 6 months later, but I kissed her. You can put your hands together. Yes. Third grade. Super awkward. I didn't know what love was. I was trying to just figure it out. I was trying to do what I think you're supposed to do. I'm trying to figure out. We're in the middle of our Loveology series, and we're trying to figure what's love all about. What does God say about love? What's the Bible say about love? And we've been studying in Song of Solomon, which is an incredible book, super steamy. Next week is going to be even more PG-13. So I just want you guys to know this whole series is PG-13. We have to talk about these things because we like to study the Bible, and this is a really good book to study, okay? And all the guys say, that's what I'm talking about, And so we're going to be studying through that. And so we just want to let you know as parents, just to be prepared for that. We're not going to say anything too crass or anything, but it's important because culture has a lot to say about this subject, that we need to be able to talk about what God has to say about romance, sex, relationships, and all those kinds of things. So we're going to be studying in Song of Solomon, which Solomon is in pursuit, and there's a Shulamite woman. They're in this relationship. They're going through an engagement. There's going to be a wedding next week, a honeymoon, then there's going to be conflict. Like all good relationships, there's going to be some serious fighting, and then there's restoration and how to work through that. And last week we talked about the laws of attraction, and I think it's important just to bring up the 4 key characteristics and points that we were looking at. And these are 4 things that we need to develop, but also look for. It's this: godly character. That's number 1. We got to look for godly character. We got to grow our trust. We need higher standards, and we need consistent encouragement. And so just really, whether you're married, single, these are great things to really put in our life, and it begins with godly character. We got a lot of traction on that last week, and for some of you, maybe you've seen that guy where you're like, how did he get that girl? I'm looking right down here. How did he get that girl? He's probably a good encourager, okay? He's got some high standards or something like that. But you got to know that this is where quality relationships come from. It's built out of good character and high standards. So this week, we're talking about intimacy. Into me you see. Into me you see. If you look in our bulletin, it says, into you me see. It's kind of a Yoda moment that we had. Into you me see. Instead of into me you see. But it's us being able to open ourselves up to look deep inside, not just the physical attraction. See, our culture says intimacy is physical. It equates intimacy with romance, which is not necessarily true. Intimacy, and these are conversations that are had a lot. How far have you guys gone? How intimate are you? And people use those kind of terms. Or it's been a while since we've been intimate. If we translate that well, it should be, how long has it been since you've talked? Not the other stuff, okay? But our culture says intimacy is basically around romance. And so our first thing that I want to talk about, there's 2 points today. One is about infatuation, and 2 is about preparation. And these are both seasons. So in any relationship, it's a season of infatuation, and then there's a season of preparation. We just have to determine, are we going to cross that bridge? Are we going to make that transition? And in Song of Solomon 2, verse 7 through 9, it says, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. The voice of my beloved, behold, he comes, leaping over the mountains and bounding over the hills. So men, you're a faithful and a proud stag, which means a 6x7 buck. Okay, so just think it's talking, you're bounding, and she's looking at you going, that's what I'm talking about, okay? And so, behold, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows and looking through the lattice. It says, do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Does somebody want to tell me what that means? Because, okay, I'm just kidding. You don't have to. That's like awkward, right? What it means is we need to be patient. Most of the message today, it's specific towards singleness, but it's going to be about everything. Engagement, there's tons of connection to our relationship as married people as well, or single again. There's a lot of application in it. But specific when it comes to love, that we wouldn't awaken it too early. We need to be patient. A lot of the message is about caution. Slow down. Wait on some things. Because in culture, it's like, soon is not soon enough, right? We want things faster. I mean, we want to be serious more faster than typical or what we're quite ready for. So we have to really guard ourselves in this. And so guys, if she's calling you this young stag or this buck, this is something that guys like. I memean, I have some pictures of some, and you guys are like, that's what I'm talking about right there. That's a powerful beast. That reminds me of myself, You're looking at that, just the physical prowess, Oh, there's another one. Look at that. You're like, woo, talk to me. Some of you, if you're hunters, then I just want you to know maybe you're a non-typical, a little bit awkward. Maybe you've got, some stuff going on. And only the hunters really get that. And you would say, well, I'm a prized possession. Only people would love to have me. Well, I don't know about that. But guys, we like to hear how good we are at something or how we did something right. If you do something around the house, you want it to be noticed and you want to be complimented on it. Something that is just another day for your spouse, but for you, man, I mean, you turned over heaven and earth to do those dishes, right? We like to hear about ourselves. We like to hear how well we're doing something. Women long to feel special, but a man longs to feel significant. So at the end of your life as a woman, you want to be loved. At the end or during your life as a man, you want to be respected. These are natural principles. We want to be significant, yet women want to feel special. When I think about these seasons of infatuation, these are seasons that all the love songs make sense. All the songs that we've heard over the years, they just make sense. And so that song that I just called to say I love you. That song, like you really did just call to say that you loved her. Or she really just called to say that he loved you. They called, okay? I just direct messaged you to say I loved you. I just FaceTimed you to, whatever. I mean, that was like 1970 that song was written. But these are true things. These are true sentiments because we're in the infatuation stage. I mean, like with Taylor Swift, marry me, Juliet, it's never gonna something, I just love you, talking about, sick your boyfriend. But all of that, those things are all true. Get me a ring and a white dress and all of that stuff, and tell my dad something. And then it's true because we're in the middle of it. Or it must have been love, but it's over now. When you go through those conflicts, you're like, it was love, but it's not love now. And in the middle of those emotions, you could say that resonates with me because we're looking for it. We're infatuated with it. We're connecting to it. It's also everything they do is cute. Later, it's going to drive you absolutely nuts. It's going to drive you crazy, but right now in the infatuation stage, it's cute. And this infatuation can last anywhere between a day or like 6 months. Typically, studies show that like 6 months is kind of a big breaking point in a lot of relationships. Maybe a couple of years, and if you're like, we've been married 37 years and I've never been more in love. I'm like thinking, I know that's true, but you've also been super annoyed too. You've also probably had some hard times, okay? But that's kind of how it is. This verse, it says this, gazing through the windows, looking through the lattice. I think Solomon needed to go to jail because I don't think he needed to get arrested. If you gaze through the windows and look through the lattice, like there's a fine line between cute and creepy. It's a fine line, you know. If I would have done that to my wife, her dad would have killed me, you know. But it's this element of, you know, what's cute, and this is a balance. We've been married 18 years, and there's this mystery within women that I can't figure out, that sometimes certain things I do is cute and sometimes it's creepy. And it's like, you're disgusting, stop that. I mean, like, here's a perfect meme to kind of explain it. Okay, one does not simply walk past his wife in the kitchen and not slap her on the booty. So this is a problem for me. Like and this is for married people, okay? Single people, this is sinful and wrong, okay? But it's just, I know that we have 6 children and you're feeding a small army and your hands are in the ground beef and you're getting things ready, and it's a perfect opportunity, you know? It's like, is that cute or creepy? I think it's great. I think I'm just romantic, you know? But yes, does anybody else feel this where you can't figure out the line between cute and creepy? Okay, we're all in trouble. But what's a mystery, we don't know where this lands. And this is the same thing is true, that there's, how do we do this? I have kids everywhere. And so when I love to kiss my wife around the kids because I'm not like going for it, like, yeah, you know, I'm like, just like a kiss, and they're like, oh, my dad, you know, or whatever. And then we now have a dog, okay? The dog barks at me every single time I kiss her. Every time. It's so funny. I'm like, mwah, arr, mwah, arr. You know, I'm like, leave me alone. Let's just, verse 10. I could go on all day about my problems. My beloved speaks to me and says, arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. You know, that's the infatuation. That's when, I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? Let's go be together. Let's go just sit in the park. I mean, let's go do something. That thing that would be a typically boring activity is exciting because you're together and the infatuation is taking place. I think back to the days of my wife and I's beginning dating days and years. It was kind of like we were going on double dates and scavenger hunts and surprise dates, and she would get together with a friend and put something together, and we would follow clues and vice versa. And she took me caving. You know, who takes their boyfriend caving? Somebody who was in love with this guy, you know? It was like, oh, this is great, and I'm enjoying it because I love caving, and she was doing that for me. It's kind of the anytime, anywhere, let's just go, let's be together. And the infatuation was so much so. We had a break over summer. We lived in different states, and we would write letters. And I just want to tell you, there was a time where people wrote letters, and it was actually kind of cool for a relationship because now everything's so quick and easy, and you know, direct message, Instagram, conversation, FaceTime, all that stuff. And it's not good or bad, but there was a time where you had to express yourself through writing. And if you made a phone call, it cost you a lot. Like I had a phone bill one time, $356 in 1 month, but she was super worth it. You know what I mean? But we went through this time where we would write each other letters, and every day or every other day we'd write each other letters, and we would make postcards for each other. We'd take a picture and then on the back put paper and then write an address and then say, hey, thinking of you here, or whatever. Just funny things. One time, in all of our letters, we would write the letter CK. We have this little insignia, because she's Chrisanna, I'm Keith. We had this insignia at all the bottom of the letters. And so I mowed in my parents' lawn CK. I mowed it so short, it burnt the grass for 6 months. Didn't grow back. CK, and they're just like, I'm like, isn't that cute? They're like, you are so annoying and embarrassing, you know? But I went on the second story, took a picture. My brother took a picture of me, maybe flexing by the CK, and I sent it to her. Maybe that happened. 6-pack. I mean, there was a lot going on there. But I took it to another level because then I farmed the CK in a field. And so as you can see behind me here, I took a tractor. I worked hard in that air-conditioned tractor while I listened to Garth Brooks. I farmed that and went up on a 100-foot harvest store and took a picture of that and then framed it and sent it to her. Because this was why I was infatuated. Other farmers were like, what a jackwagon. I mean, who farms like that? And I'm like, this guy. I'm trying to get married. I have one shot, you know. But when you're infatuated, you do all sorts of things. But we don't think often of what should we do to prepare for this. Does it get any better than this infatuation? The married people would say, yeah. It gets more real. It gets more real. It's got to get real before it can get better. So there's good times when you're infatuated, but there's great times when things get real and you go through some tough things together. And you're not just falling in infatuation with each other. There's a love that not just you fall into, because love often is a choice, right? But it's one that grows and it's one that develops. But in these seasons of prior to being married or in the season of infatuation, it's important that we limit a couple of things. And these are very pointed. And they're actually going to burn a little. I'm going to say them quickly because I don't want it to hurt too long for those of us who are single or single again. But it's important to be careful to limit our time. You have to limit your time. I know you think that you just have all the time and it's really important and we need to prioritize them. But here's what's also important. You can't quit your job because you now have this relationship. You can't quit your friends because now you have this relationship. You can't quit your family now that you have this relationship. You can't necessarily even quit your church. You can't go, how about this? How about if we integrated that relationship? If that person is worth it, if that person is valuable, integrate that person into your other relationships, to the things that God has put in order prior to that. It needs to be an integration, and that's how you'll know if they're really the right one. Because those other people and those other things and those other priorities existed before them, and infatuation wants us to push all of that aside because now we've found the one, right? We found the one. Well, God's supposed to be the one. The next thing would be talk. We have to be very cautious about the things that we talk about. This is important because I know people that on the second date, they were saying, I love you. I want to marry you. I'm going to be with you forever. And those may be feelings that are had at the infatuation level, but we're not prepared to have those conversations. Let's develop the friendship, because that friendship is what's going to sustain you much past the phases of infatuation. And lastly, touch. I'll get to that a little bit later, but we have to limit the touch in this season. It's really, 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 really important. And this is the most dangerous one. Do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Be very, very careful in the physical element because God created it. Those feelings, that attraction that happens, that was created by God. But God has some design around that. God has some rules around that. Not just regulations because he wants to steal your joy. He actually wants to give you something greater. Purity paves the way to intimacy. That's our big statement for today, is purity is what's going to pave the way for intimacy. See, we got to build this relationship around the right things. That's why that godly character, the growing trust, the consistent encouragement, the higher standards, those things are important because it will build this long-term relationship that you're going to not just endure, but get to enjoy. Infatuation should move, there are seasons, into the season of preparation. Verse 11 says, "For behold, the winter is past and the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth and the time of singing has come. And the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. And the fig tree ripens its figs and the vines are in blossom and they give forth a fragrance. Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away." See, the winter is passing. Winter has value. It's not just about the spring. It's not just about the summer and the fall harvest. Winter has value. It's an opportunity for nutrients to be stored up. It's an opportunity for the ground to be fallowed so that it can produce fruit later. God has a design for this. If you're single or you're single again or you're not quite married yet, I just want you to know God loves you entirely too much for you to rush into a relationship or rush into a marriage. People think once you're engaged, you're supposed to immediately get married. I'm not a big proponent of like long engagements, but you're not married yet. So we can't live like married people when we're engaged. We can't live like married people when we're still just dating. We have to be careful and not rush these things. Sometimes we need time to heal. Maybe there's been hurt, maybe there's been abuse, maybe there's been a divorce, and we need that time. So let's be patient. Let's not rush this love. Let's not usher in and awaken this love. If timing is really important and we need to take some time for this preparation. There's the spiritual side of preparation. See, we've all made mistakes in relationships. I made some mistakes that I needed to spiritually prepare for a real, authentic relationship with a girl instead of all of the fake, superficial, and just physically active. I was horrible when it came to commitment. I wanted other things than commitment. I was maybe a typical guy. I needed time to prepare myself spiritually. And maybe you're in that realm that the decision that God has placed on your heart right now is you need to take a season. Maybe it's a few months, maybe it's a year to prepare yourself spiritually. And we're talking as a church in 2016, and I'm saying this because as I was preparing, I thought maybe God wanted someone to specifically hear this. That our big theme for this year is Sweet 16. At 16 years old, a lot of people are growing, but not everybody's growing up. As a church, 2016, we don't want to just grow as a church, we want to grow up. And maybe the specific application for you is you're not going to just grow and go into the next relationship, but you're going to grow up into what is next and what is ahead. Making God your one. Is God your one? Is God your first? Because we're so busy looking for the one when God's our one. We got to make God our one, and then he'll give to us our two, whatever that looks like. If you're married, God needs to be your one, your spouse needs to be your two. And Solomon is going through this. He's going through this journey. He's made God his one, which makes him incredibly more attractive. But these things are being built around the right things, and we get the chance to look into his word and study that. I talked to a 21-year-old guy that attends here at Rockharbor, and I knew that he had went through some relationship stuff, and he's taken like a hiatus from some relationships. So I asked him to share a paragraph with me that I could share with you guys today. He said, during my last relationship, there were things that I put above God. And even though I would say that God was first in my life, my actions did not show that. Jeremiah 29:13 hits home where it says, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart. I went through a tough season of being broken down of all of my desires, and I believe that's because God wanted to bring me to a place where there was nothing to cling to besides him. Leaving a relationship in God's hand has brought so much freedom to live confident in him and wait on him. He's teaching me to see people through his eyes and not my own, and to be able to lead through my confidence in him. That's maturity. That's spiritual preparation. That's a 21-year-old single guy making that choice, making that decision. And ladies, for a small price, I can try to let you know, I can hook you up. You know what I'm saying? But he's making some spiritual preparation. And this spiritual preparation should move us into the practical preparation. Because we often think practical first when spiritual needs to come first. We align ourselves with God and what God wants for us and God's best for us and God being the one. The practical side are things like, can you keep a job and hold down a job? Do you have some goals for where you're going with your life? Do you have plans? Do you have a life outside of that person? If you are all that person's world and everything surrounds you or everything to them, I mean, I understand like you love them and all of that, but if there's nothing outside of that, that should freak you out a little. That's a heavy weight to bear. They need friendships. They need, you know who? The Lord. They need other influences in their life. And yes, you can be a priority, but you cannot be their one. You shouldn't want to be their one. That's a weight that you cannot possibly bear. I remember going through conversations with my father-in-law because I knew he was not going to approve us to get married based around we're just going to live on love. He is an engineer. He is into details. He can build a house from the ground up, and he can make me help him do that, right? I mean, I understand this man. I was getting to know him. We dated for about 2 years, and then I'm ready to tell him that I want to spend the rest of my life with his daughter, and I came as prepared as I possibly could at 21 years old, okay? I didn't know everything about my life, but I knew this. If I was going to have any shot with her, I needed to have my stuff together, okay? I put together a 6-page portfolio. Not even kidding. It was handwritten, and I copied it at Kinko's in color. In color. It was blue ink. Whoop-de-doo, right? But I had it all written out, copied in color, sat down at Olive Garden, which, by the way, I paid for, and I was like, dear Lord, how much do I tip? I don't know, round it up. You know, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm sitting down. Mother-in-law's here, father-in-law's here. I'm said, I got something for you. Slid some notebooks across the table. I am not kidding. And I sat there, and I walked them through my plan of why I felt like we were prepared to be married. There was things about the assets that I had. I was like, I have a 1989 Grand Am and it's paid off. What up, brother? You know, I was excited about that Grand Am. I paid $6,200 for that Grand Am. up front in cash. And he was like, in cash? I said, that's right, in cash. He goes, that's impressive. I said, yeah. And I paid for my first 2 years of college in cash. He's like, in cash? And I said, yeah, I worked my whole life for it and spent it all. And then I'm working my way through college. And when I marry your daughter, I'll pay for her college. That was stupid. I should have never said that. Okay? But these were the things. I had goals, I had plans. I was talking about our future. I was talking about ministry. And he was like, if you take her to Africa, this is over. And I said, no, I think God's going to call us up to the Northwest, and I'm going to pastor up here and all that. Little did I know that we were going to go Africa, and we have children from Africa, and I totally worked him. But anyways, I knew that there had to be a plan together. There had to be something put together that was actually practical. That not everything that God does is going to make sense on paper, but we have to do some things. We have to plan. Solomon had a plan. This wasn't just like, oh, she's pretty. Hey, come over here, let's get married. There was a plan around this. There wasn't just thoughtful romance. There was intimacy that was taking place. It says in verse 14, "O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the crannies of the cliff, please let me see your face. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet and your face is lovely." She wants to talk. Did you hear that? She wants to talk and she wants to talk. These are important things for intimacy. Our culture associates romance or intimacy with romance. But intimacy is with conversations. Intimacy is transparency. It's saying there are no secrets. You want to get intimate with someone, tell the truth, the whole truth. So help you God. We need to tell the truth. See, we want to be able to give partial truth, but have full expectation and full and free lives when we're only giving half of the story. We need to be honest in our marriages. We need to be honest in our dating relationships. We need to be honest in our friendships. And in the full honesty, God will bring his blessing of intimacy. We don't understand that because we're used to just giving a compartment. We compartmentalize everything. I'm going to let them know what they need to know because if they really knew this, they would love me less. My wife and I significantly grew in our relationship once we started to what they call storm, have conflict, have some tough things in life, have some loss in life, go through some difficult things, make a poor choice, have to say I'm sorry. She fell in love with me and I fell in love with her, and we grew in our intimacy as we actually apologized to one another. She could see my heart come out when I owned it. I could see her heart come out when she confessed or shared something with me. Infatuation is just a lot easier, isn't it? It's a lot more fun. But it's about that deep. It's got to get real before it gets better. Am I really allowing her to see into me? Into me, she sees. Because when you're dating, all we do is talk, right? Tons of talking. Lots of money invested in phone calls and phone bills back in the day, right? Lots of time staying up late. But there's a difference between being close by and close to. See, in marriage, we often find ourselves, we're close by the person, right? You share toothpaste, share a bed, share a toilet, share food, share money. Close bys. But are we close to the person? Is there intimacy going on? And that's a big question. That's something to really process if you're married in the room. Answer that question. Do you feel like you're just close by each other? Or are you just two people passing in a house with tons of kids? What is it? You know, there's full marriage counseling, conversations, resources about date nights for married people. It's important. It's important to spend time together. I want to look my kids in the face and say, hey, long before you suckers came along, she was here, and long after you're gone, she's going to be here. So don't tell my kids I said that, but they'll revolt and I can't handle it, okay? But it's important for us to set ground rules and boundaries in that. And we have to protect our purity. Verse 15 says, catch the foxes, for us, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards, for our vineyards are in blossom. See, the foxes come and it eats the blossoms. The foxes come and eats the grape before it's developed. And there's all these little things that come in and pick and consume and take the blessing that we're going to be able to harvest in our marriage, in our relationship. that it steals. So what are the things that are stealing in your life? See, as married people, I want you to know that over 50% of divorces are because of infidelity, and that's super sad. And every single one of us in this room has been affected by divorce. Every one of us, whether it's we've been part of one or our parents or somebody we know closely, it's made an impact. But I read an article that had 7 things that we do in cheating on our spouse that don't involve sex. 7 things that we do. An emotional affair. And this is important for us to talk about. In our groups tonight, and this week, whenever your group meets, community group is going to be talking about this. And some of you are like, oh, I don't want to go now. It's not talking about in mixed company. We'll be breaking up with guys and girls and be able to talk a little bit deeper about this. But this is really important. If you're not in a group, you need to write these things down and see kind of where you line up in some of these areas. The first thing is an emotional affair. This is when we give more of our heart to someone than we should. The next one is another confidant or group. Don't rob your spouse because you're in so many accountability groups and Bible studies that you don't grow in your faith with her or with him. Be careful in that. This hobby or obsession that can slip in. It's something that's great, but if you love running more than you love them, or if you love cars more than you love her, we have to look at this obsession. Or a work spouse where that job is just always there on the phone. It's always one more call, one more text, I got to return it. I mean, there's some realities to work. I mean, we have to do our jobs right, but making sure we don't make it a spouse. The one that's talked about a lot is lust. Lust. Pornography. Looking at things, having thoughts that we shouldn't necessarily have. This implodes our marriages from the inside. Maybe it's kids. The kids have become more of a priority than the marriage. And lastly is social media. This is the painful one. This is when I need the music. If you can get music, I'm going to need this because we're going to swear an oath before God and man. So I'm not kidding. Would you raise your right hand if you're married? Raise your right hand if you're married, okay? Everybody, open palm, okay? None of this, kind of like, okay? Open hand if you're married, okay? Repeat after me. That's good, powerful, okay, thank you. I will not be more devoted to catching up with friends and random people online than I am with the one that I share a bed with. Amen. Can I put my hand down? Yes. Okay. That's important. It's important because we can get caught up in things and relationships and in stuff. And maybe it's not just, online stuff and, snaps and grams and books and that thing. Maybe it's something else that is taking your time and your focus, that you're not giving one another the best that you could. Maybe you're an unmarried couple. There's some boundaries that whether you're dating or engaged, there's some boundaries you got to look at because people ask the question, how far is too far? And what if we've made a mistake? There's plenty of grace. Hopefully you've heard more failure than you have celebration, and you will throughout this series. I'm not kidding. Week 5, which is May 1st, we're going to share a story of redemption that it takes incredible, incredible faith and courage to share, and this couple's going to share it. It's going to rock you. There's more redemption that's needed. There's more grace that's in this place. But some of us have stepped outside the bounds, and we're in a dating relationship or we're in an engagement that we're crossing boundaries. We have to make that choice. Are we going to honor God together or are we going to sin together? There's only 2 choices. Are we going to honor God together or are we going to sin together? And I don't want this to sound old school. I want this to sound Bible. I want us to have the freedom that comes. See, we want the full freedom, but we only want to give a partial sacrifice. Did you hear that? We want the full freedom, but we only want to give a partial sacrifice. So what are you willing to give? Are you willing to say we need to step back from some of our physical contact? We need to talk about our standards and boundaries. We need to talk about the guilt that goes along with that before the heat of the moment. I have a friend that he calls it 4 on the floor, meaning that every time he went to watch a movie with his girlfriend, then his fiance, and now his wife, that's changed. The rules are totally different, but they wanted 4 feet on the floor. You know why? Because when she'd throw her feet up on his, he would be rubbing those freshly shaved legs. And he was not thinking about The Martian or The Good Dinosaur. He was not thinking about the movie that he's watching. He was thinking about freshly shaved legs when she would lay on his lap. You better believe me, he was not thinking about The Martian or The Good Dinosaur. He wasn't thinking about any of those things. He was thinking about a whole lot of other things. What if we made a commitment to keep our clothes on? This is crazy. Okay? But we could avoid a lot of areas in our life, unmarried, in relationship, if we made that decision to keep things buttoned, zipped, snapped, and Velcroed. Okay? If we would make that choice, we'd help ourselves a lot, because a lot of the temptation, my wife and I, prior to marriage, I didn't face those things until we kissed. The second we kissed, that's all I could think about. I liked that. I have an appetite for that. You know, I was thinking about those things. And what does the Bible say about that? I have a verse for you that's going to kind of gross you out. Okay? Kind of going to gross you out. What should we do with this? 1 Timothy 5:2. Well, with older women, we should treat them as our mothers. With younger women, we should treat them as our sisters in all purity. Gross. Like, I put my arm around my sister, I'll hug my sister, I might kiss my sister on the cheek, but it's stopping there. And you're asking me to do that in my marriage? Or not my marriage, whoa. No, I don't, that is wrong. That was not from God. That was from Satan, okay? In my dating relationship. I'm not saying that you shouldn't kiss. I'm not saying how far should you go, but man, we've got to be cautious, because it's a slippery slope, and a lot of people don't want to talk about that in church, because it feels awkward, and now people are making rules, and I need to test things before I buy these things. And I just want you to know that there's actually a right way, and there's preparation that can be done. And the Bible's good. Reading all of the Bible is good. Reading Song of Solomon is good. Listen to this. Verse 16, my beloved is mine and I am his. It's talking about God's love for us. But it's also talking about the love they have for each other. And listen to this one. He grazes among the lilies. She's imagining the honeymoon. She's imagining the wedding night. Glory to God. There's a meaning of grazing among the lilies. Look it up. It's kind of weird, but I'm just going to tell you, there's a special meaning there. I love the Bible. And then it says, verse 17, until the day breathes and the shadows flee, turn, my beloved, be like a gazelle or a young stag in the cleft of the mountain. Until the day breathes. All night long is what it's talking about, until the break of dawn, y'all. That's in the Bible. I love the Bible. The Bible is good. We should read the Bible. And you know why it's good? Because it's from God. And it's not perverted. It's good. And you know why it's good? And you know why she wants, and she's making these statements about giving herself to this man? Because that man has given everything to her. So it's okay for her to want to do those things. It's okay. I mean, it says other words that we're going to get to next week. Remember, may not bring your kids. But there are things that are talked about that are good because everything has been given to her from him. And it's a picture of the gospel. So how do we go from talking about sex and romance to the gospel? Because God created it, and he created it for his glory and our good. It's a gift that's been given to us. And God, our Heavenly Father, has given us everything in Jesus. He's calling you from darkness to light in your relationships. But he's also calling you from darkness to light in your relationship with him, that you wouldn't live in guilt and you wouldn't live in shame. He's calling you for salvation. He's not taking something from you. Rather, he's preparing something greater. There's a greater story being told. There's a greater story being written in your relationships and your walk with him. There is freedom. So many of us in this room, we have so much guilt and shame because of things we've done, things we've looked at, things we've lied about. Failures in our marriages, failures in our relationships. If people around us knew, they would never, ever talk to us again. And that's where Satan wants to keep us. But God is saying, I have freedom for you. I want intimacy with you. I've given everything for you so that you can have everything in me. That's what he has for us. Would you bow your heads with me? There's lots of applications today, one of which is for salvation. Because when you recognize the love the Father has for you and what he's done for you and I, it's incredible. My beloved is mine, and I'm his. If God has called on your heart and moved for you to receive him as your Savior, I invite you to do that just right now. For others, it's a conversation about patience and relational healing where you just need it. Maybe you need to look at your marriage and say, are we just close by each other or are we close to each other? To really evaluate, to really assess, to look at where your time's going, look at where your words of affirmation are going, the way that you serve one another. Are we just close by or are we close to? And lastly is for everyone in this room to pray. To pray with your significant other, whether that be in marriage or whether that be in dating or engagement. And even if you're single, maybe God has you set apart for singleness. You would know that. But maybe there's this desire in you to be married, that you would pray and that we would make a commitment as a church for the next 4 weeks that we're going to pray together. That you're going to pray with your spouse every single day, and you're going to pray with your boyfriend or girlfriend every single day. Whether it's verbally over the phone or it's face-to-face or it's simply through a text, but every day I'm making that commitment. Who has raised their hand and say, I'm willing to do that. I'm making that commitment as a single person or as a married person to pray every single day about my purity and about our relationship. Who would raise their hand and say, I'm making that commitment? God, we come before you and we believe that you have greatness planned for our relationships. You have redemption planned. You have healing planned. There is no place for guilt. There's place for your grace and your hope and your life that comes from only you. God, we receive that this morning. We ask this in your great name. Amen.